Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Shama Ashram in Cali, Colombia, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to beautiful Costa Rica, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Sages retreat. Did I just say Costa Rica? Oh, it's all the same. Take two. Welcome to Colombia, everybody, and welcome to Questions and Answers Day. This is a day where we're sort of like, we field questions that are out by the audience. We try our best to answer them in the appropriate way according to the parampara, the disciplic chain of teachers coming down for millennia. And, you know, people might argue, hey, this is a yoga podcast. You never talk about down dog. I know we don't. We don't talk about down dog very much. We talk about the yoga philosophy and what to do with what you do with your body when you heal your body from all the yoga asanas. The yoga asanas are meant to heal and refine and detox our body. And then what do you do with that body? Is it just like, check out my cool organic body? No. We take that body and we use it to give back because we understand we are all maintained, we are all loved, we are all part of something bigger, and I'm here to give back. So we talk about the philosophy as taught in the Vedic teachings, and that's why we call it a daily yoga podcast. So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you. How are you doing, Kaustubha? Did you hear that person ringing the gate last night?
That was your dream. It didn't happen, Raghunath.
It was not a dream. It was real. It happened. It happened. It spun out of control in my mind. Who's in that gate? Who's after me?
That I don't doubt.
Who's after me? So we have Mara, you got any announcements? Anything today for our peeps?
I do have some announcements. The usual Bhakti Recovery Group meeting is canceled, but Jiva is giving a lecture at the Munich Temple at 9 a.m.
Ooh.
On Bhakti Recovery?
Yep. And Kaustubha is doing we're going to live stream his Bhagavatam class again for our Patreon members at 3:30 this afternoon, if you want to join. And then also Seth Lieberman's Harmonium meetup group is tomorrow at noon for Patreon members.
So if they want to join my class, they go to our Patreon page and they'll find the link there?
Yep, and it's the same link every day. So
Okay, great. Oh, and also tomorrow we got a very special interview bringing back our dear friend and special yogi, Yogi Charu.
Yogi True. Happy to have him here. I'm excited. That's tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern time. I've got announcements. I'm taking a gang of people to Nepal trekking through the Himalayas in March.
A gang? Which gang are you taking?
The Hells Angels. Yeah.
Okay. They're a club, not a gang.
Okay. They're a club. Anyway, if you'd like to join, go to raghunath.yoga and check that out. And it's quite breathtaking. Eileen's here. She went with me last year. Rachel's here. She went with me last year. It was Rocco's here. He went with me last year. It was a special trip. So if you're interested, check that out. It's going on in March, and it's a beautiful time to be in the Himalayas. Okay. We did that live, right? Didn't we do our show live on the trek?
Yeah, we tried. Sometimes it failed. Yeah, sometimes
it failed a little.
Yeah,
that got that Himalayan dial-up modem. All right. We tried. So Q&A day. We're going to start with one of the ladies here. She's from Pittsburgh. Her name is Megan. Megan, you want to come up or you want me to read it? Okay, she's going to come up here and read it.
All right.
And Megan is an other. She's just an other out there. We had no idea she was out there, but she's really out there. And she just showed up. Here, I want you to get right here and talk right into my microphone.
Okay.
Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. So my question is, I understand that I am not the body. So I understand that I'm not the body, but at the same time, I have to work on the body to serve Krishna and serve others. And it's very, it's all encompassing, right? It's a lot of work. So my question is, how do we try to bridge the gap between I'm not the body, but also I need to take care of the body?
Good question. Good question.
Good.
Thank you. She's from Pittsburgh, Zeb. Zeb's listening on Zoom. We got a bunch of mysterious Pittsburgh people out there peppered around, and Beaver, Pennsylvania people.
The Iron City.
Yeah. No, it's the city of bridges, actually.
Yeah, it's got different.
It's not iron, it's steel.
Yeah, but iron is made out of steel or something, or the other way.
Mara?
Vice versa.
Which is which?
Steel is made with iron.
Mara, what did you learn in that private school?
Anyway,
metallurgy?
let's answer the question.
How do we get back to the question?
This is called the last second squirrel right here.
All right, what do you got for it? Because we got an answer to that question. It's a very good question.
It is a very good question. It's a practical question. Getting real about spiritual life means, we're living in this world, but we're trying to bring our consciousness to, in a sense, another world, or at least another level, right? Another level than most people are even thinking about. Most people are operating on the level of the body, of the senses, or at most of the mind. It's the mind and the senses are this equipment that they're using to try to find enjoyment in this world, and it's all encompassing. But the yogi is going on and is approaching another level, that of the soul, right? Not the body, not the mind, but the level of the soul, and understanding that the soul is made out of a completely different energy, and we're trying to revive the soul's natural consciousness that's lying underneath the mind and lying underneath the body. And so when you're thinking on that level and operating on this level, you may appear to others to be aloof from bodily concerns. And it can be impractical or even dangerous sometimes if one's not careful, right? So there's got to be a certain balance. I think that, maybe one way we could talk all day about this subject, right? But I'll say this: what the Srimad Bhagavatam identifies as illusion is when we see anything as separate from God, anything disconnected from God. So it's illusory to think I am this body, that this body is me and it has no connection to God. What is reality is to say I'm a spark of spiritual energy. I'm God's energy. I have an eternal relationship with God. I'm temporarily in a material body. And this body, ultimately, even though I'm granted consciousness that spreads throughout the body, and even though I'm granted some level of independence in the use of this body, it's not a full independence. I can't do whatever I want with this body. And this body will age and grow old and ultimately die, and I have no control over that. But I am granted some independence to use this body. And so is it my body, or does it ultimately belong to God? It ultimately belongs to God. Okay, now seeing it that way is not illusion, that's reality. And now let me care for it, and you care for it as if it's God's property, and use it in the service of God. And that's not illusion. That's like reality. And so if you think of your body this way, then you will be as practical as anybody else in this world, and as together and as responsible as anyone else in terms of their body, maybe even more so. But you won't be in the illusion thinking that I am this body, or that the point of life is to satisfy this body. So maybe that's where we can find that balance or bridge that gap.
I like that.
You like that?
I like that. I think you're wise.
How does Megan like that? That's the question.
She didn't like it. No, she loves it. Just kidding.
Would you like to add a little something to it?
I'll keep it short. It's a rented vehicle. Have you ever rented a car before? Anybody? For a weekend? Sometimes you rent a Kia. Sometimes you rent a Mustang convertible. I do sometimes. But it's not you. Don't get too proud of it. Don't say, you know, I rented this car for the weekend. I think I'm going to get new rims. You know, don't overextend yourself to the rented vehicle, but take care of it and maintain it. Don't trash it. And if you're going to live in this world, and like, for example, I'm a father, I have children. So what do I do with those children? It's a partial truth. I don't own the children. I don't possess them. I can't keep them, but I'm going to give them as much spirit information as I can. And I'm going to love them. And I'm going to work on my own issues by learning to love something that's just not myself. That's called narcissism or materialism. And I'm going to sacrifice for them. And in that sacrifice, I'm not going to do it in a resentful way. I'm going to do it because I'm training myself to love again. But I deeply weave it in with the Vedic knowledge of I can't possess, I don't own. This child is not mine. This spouse is not mine. I'm going to love and be detached. And that is like delicate slack line we have to cross in this life.
Slack line.
Slack line. You like that?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. All right. I got one for you, my friend. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
This is from Paul Bear. Oh, wow. We knew a hardcore guy named Paul Bear. Right? This is not him. This is Paul Bear, not Paul Bearer.
What was that band?
He said he's a dented other from Scranton. He's now living in Manchester, UK. Do you think he's really from Scranton, or he's just joking?
I don't know, but he should start a band if he's in Scranton. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. What are you going to say, Mara? Yeah, you can't see Mara, but she is bronze. I call her Malibu Mara now. She's
he really is from Scranton.
He really is from Scranton. Okay. We got a whole Scranton contingency. Still very new to Bhakti yoga and trying my best day to day with a few slips up here and there. I feel like I've grown so much since coming across wisdom of the sages, and I thank you for that. My question is, we are judged in our waking life for the deeds we do, but does Krishna ever mention anything about our subconscious or dreams? Like, do you get judged? Do you get karma for your dreams? My dreams lately have been off the wall, to say the least. Could be due to the events we are living in or the changes I've made. But I feel if we are judged on those states, then I'm in trouble. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks again for all you've done, Paul Bear. I'm dying to find out, like, what the hell is this guy dreaming? What is he dreaming about?
We need details.
Give me details, Paul. Okay. This is you, brother.
Thank you, Paul. So are we judged in our waking life for the deeds we do? My question is, we are judged in our waking life for the deeds we do, but does Krishna ever mention anything about our subconscious or dreams? And I guess you're asking, are we judged about that? Like, are we judged? Do we get karma for our thoughts? And, you know, the word for karma, the word karma, literally means action. Like, its most fundamental meaning of the word karma is action. And so that's a clue right there, right? That, in other words, the reactions that we get are due not to our thoughts, but they're due to our actions. So ultimately, we're judged by our actions. We're not judged for our thoughts, and we are not, and what to speak of our dreams, you know, which are like where we really have no control over them. You know, at least with our thoughts, we can say, you know what, I want to stop thinking about this, and we can switch our thoughts to something else. But with our dreams, we're really, you know, helpless. And we just kind of sit. It's kind of like Clockwork Orange, you know, where like they tie you down and they keep your eyes open and they force you to watch a certain film. The dream is like that, right? Just like you kind of have no control over it, at least in the moment. But yeah, I think it's important to understand that, you know, he's saying judged. And by that, I'm assuming he's talking about like karma. Like, if I'm thinking bad thoughts, will I suffer in this life because of it? No, you won't. You know, the karma works based on our actions, but this is important though. But the very goal of life is Krishna consciousness, right? The very goal of life is that our awareness, that our consciousness become deeply absorbed with emotions of love for God and for every living being. When we achieve that state of consciousness, we've achieved the goal of life. That's what Bhakti-yoga is aiming to achieve. And so that has to do with your thoughts, right? So it's not that we're judged on a karmic level for our thoughts, but the path of yoga is a path of controlling and, let's say, refining our thoughts so that gradually our thoughts will become more pure, more selfless, more loving, and ultimately the heart and the mind will melt in devotional love, again, for God and for every living being. So in one sense, we're judged for that. In other words, we pass the test when our thoughts are entirely submerged in loving devotion. So we're aiming for that goal, and we're doing everything that we can to work towards having pure thoughts. So it's not that our thoughts aren't important. They're very important. But it's not that we're paying a karmic price for any thoughts that are passing through our head. But I'll also say this, getting back to karma and how the law of karma works, it's a fact that it's not our thoughts that we pay the price for, but what acharyas like Rupa Goswami and others, in the yoga tradition have pointed out is that bad karma starts, or even just karma altogether, starts with thoughts. It starts with the desire, and if we're in ignorance, those desires are generally related to, they will become karmic. They'll lead, those desires, those thoughts will lead to actions, and those actions will lead to reactions. And one type of reaction that comes in this cycle is the disposition to act that way again, to have the thought in the mind that let me do this again, that our thoughts become programmed in relation to our previous actions. So thoughts lead to actions, and actions lead to more thoughts, which lead to more actions, which lead to more thoughts, and it creates a cycle. So in that sense, our thoughts are tied to our karma, but it's not the thought that produces the karma, it's the action that follows the thought that produces the karma. So I hope that's helpful.
Me likey.
You like that?
I like that a lot.
Thank you for the question, Paul.
Yeah, that's good. What you got, sir?
I got a question for you, and you're particularly qualified to answer this question as a straight edge acharya.
Straight edge acharya. All right, I'll take that.
Okay, all right. This is from Jorgen. You pronounce it Jorgen, right? The J is pronounced like a Y.
I think it is.
Jorgen from the Netherlands.
From the Netherlands.
He writes via email. Did we tell people how to write in if they have questions?
Yeah, if you have a question, you can write to Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. That's the best way, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And there's a Q&A on our Discord thread as well.
That's there too.
We take it from there as well.
Okay, Jorgen writes, Dear wise souls of Wisdom of the Sages, I think I'll start this year with a confession. You ready?
All right.
If it comes to controlling the senses, I'm a bit of a failure. Don't worry.
Welcome to the club.
I do not drink alcohol, but I do drink alcohol, but try to regulate that in the best way possible. Not always a success, I have to admit. So here is the puzzle in my mind. Let's just assume, as an example, that I drink a glass of wine at dinner. Would that make me less fit for Krishna consciousness?
No, it makes you evil.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay. He says, I know about the 4 rules that Srila Prabhupada gave his disciples. Did he introduce those rules? Or is it written somewhere in the Shastras, in the ancient yogic texts? Would it be impossible for me to grow on this path if I'd continue this habit? Could you explain these rules and kindly give your opinion on this matter? Thank you so much in advance.
Good question.
All right. Is it okay to have a little vino? A little grappa?
It's a good question, and my answer is very unorthodox.
Uh-oh.
Hold it over. He's like, wait a second here, because he was going to tackle me.
What's your answer?
If someone was to ask me, I would say, is it a big deal? It's probably not a big deal to have a glass of wine, even though Prabhupada forbid it, and sacred literature does forbid it. It's like they keep the boundaries very high. Do I think it can actually throw you off the path? No, but what I do say is, I mean, it has the potential.
Like a glass of wine won't necessarily.
It has the potential to. But what I say is that you don't live in, I just said this in class today too. We don't live in a bubble. My actions affect everyone. So you might be, I'm very comfortable. I don't get drunk. I have it. My doctor recommends 2 glasses, but the problem is there are people that love you and look up to you, and they may not be able to handle 1 glass of wine at dinner. So that is a big problem, because meet the people from our Bhakti recovery group. They're not there for fun. They're there because they've slid down a slippery slope where alcohol has dismantled their functional life, maybe ruined their career, maybe ruined their family, maybe lost their children or their spouse, So we have to take this stuff very seriously. And it might not be a big issue for you, but there are people that it's a very big issue that look up to you. If you have children and they see you drinking a glass of wine, you don't understand, but they could be people that are very, very triggered. And some people cannot have 1 glass of wine. They have to have 5. And all you have to do is talk to people in a recovery group or 12-step program, and you realize that there's lives that have been lost because of alcohol. And there's what to speak of, driving when you're consuming alcohol. It's so much detriment. I always tell my kids, there's no good that can come from it. So why not just keep those things out of your life? That's sort of how I feel. I think we all have responsibility in our behavior, and our behavior sets standards for other people. And so one thing I wanted to say, Jorgen, and I think it's a very sincere question. I think you're very sincere. And I do think that your opening line was really poignant. You said, I'm going to start this year with a confession. I think it's a huge thing to share your shortcomings with people that you trust, or else we live in a world of secret stuff. And that always causes bigger problems. Find people that you trust their integrity and reveal your heart, reveal your struggle, but also associate with those people. And some of us are doing it. I'm doing it just by being on this podcast. I'm associating with people who are raising my bar in my habits, in my thoughts, in my activities, in my meditation. I want to be around people who are assisting me to raise the bar in my life, because there's a lot of people, and culture included, culture wants us to continuously lower that bar. And so if life is short and I really want to be the best person I can be, why live with regrets? There is a discipline of becoming sober. There's a discipline of controlling the senses. There's a discipline in meditation every day. There's a discipline about hearing the Bhagavatam every day. There's a discipline in that. And it's a little painful. I wanted to sleep in today. I had things to do today, right? I wanted to eat what everybody else was eating, and I didn't. There's a discipline and a pain, like a ding that you get from doing that. But there's a much bigger pain in regret as I get older. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I think it is a great answer. Thank you, Raghunath. And just to make sure we cover it all. He's saying, I know about the 4 rules that Srila Prabhupada gave his disciples. Did he introduce those rules? Or is it written somewhere in the Shastras?
I think they're peppered throughout the Shastra, but I can't quote it. But there is, I think Prabhupada also was dealing with a bunch of crazy hippies. And he had to okay, these guys need some parameters. I think it's understood in Vedic culture is, you don't cheat on your wife. You don't have a bunch of girlfriends. There's some idea of continence, and once cable TV or satellite TV hit India, then we started pushing all our ideas of the new normal. I remember sitting in Pune, in India, and I was in a gentleman's house, and it was the first year, and he was showing check out, we just got satellite TV this year in India. And I was like, oh, exciting. I turned it on, and what is the first thing I saw? Baywatch. I was like, okay, I get it now. I get it where your culture is about to go. And it's hard to even believe that, because most of us grew up with cable TV or satellite TV or the internet, But when you and I first went to India, there was no internet. There were no cell phones. And like parts of the country, parts of the world all look different from other parts of the world. Now everything is homogenized in some, like we're all the same, but things were actually different. Cultures were different. And there's definitely higher cultures, upgraded cultures, and lower cultures. And it's just how the culture trains themselves into habits of, you know, self-control and self-discipline.
You know, those quote unquote rules or regulations, they are there in the first canto of Bhagavatam, but one recommended read is Simon Haas's book, The Book of Dharma. If you check that out, I noticed Mara was just reading it yesterday, right?
Mara was reading it as she was sunbathing.
Yeah, by the pool. She was by the pool.
Poolside sunbathing at the
Reading
country
the Book of
club.
But in that book, he takes the principles that are related to those regulations: truth, purity, nonviolence, and discipline, and he speaks on those, because really, you know, all the rules and regulations are related to principles. And so, you know, the principle of you know, not indulging in alcohol, let's say, has to do with discipline. And so he ties these things together really nicely in that book. So if you want to learn more about that, I would recommend that Book of Dharma by Simon Haas.
And of course, the rules, when we talk about rules, it always sounds like taking away, thou shalt not. They're for our benefit. If I say drive on the right side, not the left side, I'll get off me with all your rules. It's for your benefit, man. You want to get to where you're going. There's some rules in place for our benefit, not to hinder our freedom.
Imposing your power games on me.
Yeah, the man.
He's
trying to tell me how to drive my car. Interesting.
All right, I got another question, Raghunath. This one we can both answer, but you can start it, okay? Let me read to you. This is a serious question. It's from our dear friend and Zoomer, Abir.
He's a
Asrani.
Zoomer.
Yeah, from Mumbai. So Abir writes, I hope this email finds you all in good health. I am happy to be writing to you again after so long. In the recent past, I have majorly strayed off course, and I have found myself firmly stuck in miserable patterns of thinking that leave me dejected and demoralized.
No, that's sad.
Yeah, I reached out to Dunya to try to get a little help with this question, but I wasn't able to reach her. But we'll have to do our best. He writes, I'm currently at the stage in my life where I must now focus on life after my education and begin to search for a job. Now, let me put this in context, because, you know, you grew up in Mumbai. The pressure that you have from family, from society, from teachers, and so on is very intense.
And we live in a culture where the parents are like, be whatever you want, whatever feels good. I was like, okay, Mom, I'm going to be a garbage man. Good for you. You want to be a garbage man? Be the best garbage man you can. It's not like that in India. There is a race against the clock for impeccable grades.
Yeah.
And it's a real push by the culture, by the parents, by the family, by the grandparents.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stress, overwhelm. Even sometimes, like, you hear about suicide or alcoholism or something.
It's not at all uncommon.
Yeah.
Okay. So he writes, I'm currently at the stage in my life where I must now focus on life after my education, begin my search for a job. So far, I have been unsuccessful. However, every time I open social media or speak with my friends, I'm constantly exposed to the amazing success being enjoyed by what seems to be everyone else but me. This leaves me extremely demoralized, and I simply get filled with anxiety every time I try and remedy the situation. My question is this. In today's day and age, where everyone's lives are so transparent and are on display for the world to see, how do I keep myself from feelings of envy and dejection when I inevitably hear of my peers out-achieving me? How do I keep my mind from making me feel like a failure? I'm so blessed by Krishna in so many beautiful ways, but I feel as though this one shortcoming in myself denies me from enjoying the blessings I have been given. How do I avoid this endless cycle of self-criticism, worry, and anxiety? I would be eternally grateful for any advice on this subject, as it is sorely needed by me. I want to once again offer my deepest respect and gratitude to the three of you who have brought so much positive change in my life.
That was a beautiful question, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
What a great, sincere, relevant question, probably for everybody. By the way, if you're listening to this as an other or on Zoom, I'm here with a huge posse of Wisdom of the Sages people live. I'm going to turn around the camera later on. Abir, thank you for asking that question. You want me to go first, Prabhu?
Please.
You know, I was just mentioning this in class this morning as well, too. There's a problem when we try to compete with the highlight reel of social media, the highlight reel of other people's lives. It's not their life. It's the highlight reel of their life. And let's face it, a highlight reel of material success does not mean material fulfillment. You and I know a lot of very successful people that have taken their life, that have become drug addicts, that are miserable. They have everything and they're sad. So if that's the metric that we're reaching for, you're not going to win that. You don't want to win that game. We have a different metric in Bhakti, and our metric is that we want to be happy serving Krishna. This is where Bhagavad Gita comes to life. I want to be happy serving Krishna, and the results are up to Krishna. I'm going to try as if I'm in control, but deeply I know I'm not in control. I'm going to try as if I'm in control, but deeply I understand I'm not in control. Comparison, this is what I said. I said comparison is the thief of joy, right? You want joy. You might push yourself in, but once you start putting yourself, it's like a mousetrap you're not going to get out of. And one way to get out of this, I mentioned this in class today too, was when we start to develop our why we're here. Okay, you want to get ahead in engineering. You know, that's a big thing that a lot of Indians that I know go to engineering school, or you want to get ahead in business or finance or whatever you're getting at. Why? Why do you want to get ahead in it? What's the win in getting ahead at finance, at business, at engineering? What is it? Is it to get out of India and to move to Toronto or to New York or to the Western world? Is it to make a certain amount of money? If those are your whys, you're going to suffer. You need a why that will make you cry, the why that we would die for. Like that? Why, die, cry?
It's called alliteration.
That's not an alliteration. Alliteration.
No, rhyming
right,
is not alliteration?
Alliteration, they all have the same vowel.
No, alliteration, it all starts with the same letter.
That's what I mean. The same letter.
It?
Yeah,
that's
the one
not
I just said was a rhyme.
Raghunath.
A rhyme.
I know, rhyming, got it. Okay.
Right.
That's called a rhyme.
It's an alliteration.
That's called a rhyme. Okay.
Oh, it's good, clean fun here on the podcast. So anyway, we need that why in our life, that why I want to wake up in the morning. And maybe you do. Maybe you want to make a lot of money, but why do you want to make a lot of money? Because you want to do some valuable things with that money. You want to do some worthy things with that money. We live in a world where people are feeling worthless. They feel like they have no self-esteem. And how do you get worth? You do worthy things. There is no financial metric to get to where you're going to feel, now I'm worthy. And there'll always be something, no matter how much you're making, there's somebody making more. That's not the win. The win is, why am I doing this? There's something worthy. I want to give back. I want to contribute. That's where we find our worth. Abir, I love you.
Thank you for that, Raghu.
And start posting your own stuff.
I'll try to add to that. You know, in one sense, this is a very serious question. And I want to begin with saying that if this is leading to very dark thoughts and very deep loops, you know, the language that you use, you know, you're saying I'm firmly stuck in miserable patterns and I'm dejected and demoralized and you know, you might want to seek some help, you know, to seek some counseling that can help you. It's really just a practical thing, is my mind is stuck in these very negative loops, and it's actually dangerous. You know, it's a dangerous place to be. And there are, you know, experts in this field that can help you break those loops. So that might be something to consider. having said that, you know, neither Raghunath or I are those types of professional experts, professional counselors. So we're going to share advice that we have from the spiritual end, which is equally important. But you might also, you know, that clinical help could be needed too. Okay. So having said that, I think what Raghunath is saying is really important. And to add to that, I would say we tend to worry about things far more, like they say they do statistics, right? It's like something like 95% of the stuff that we worry about in the end never ends out to
Never
be a problem.
manifests.
It never manifests. So, you know, you're thinking, you know, I went to school and I got good grades, I did this, but now here I am finally at the moment of truth, and everybody else is getting a job, but I'm not, you know. This is going to be horrible. I'm going to be embarrassed wherever I go, and I'm never going to have a decent job, and it's going to lead to a miserable life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for all you know, you're going to have, you know, a decent job tomorrow, you know. Or this may lead your life in a direction that you never anticipated, you know, like we never know how God's working in our life, you know. So the point is that we can't control the externals. Krishna is telling this to Arjuna, you know, be even-minded in success or failure. You know, I know that's easy to say and harder to practice, but the way that truth becomes realized is through reflection. This is the process of how we reprogram our own mind, and it's a practice of yoga. We call it Buddhi yoga. Is that when life gets challenging, and life is throwing you challenges right now, right? The material energy has put your mind into these loops that it's now your challenge to break those loops with truth. Every time the loop comes up, you need to counter it with truth. And if you can do that steadily and not allow those negative loops to gain momentum, then you can begin to gain the upper hand, and you can begin to reprogram your mind rather than your mind controlling you. And so when you're feeling that sense of dejection, when you're feeling demoralized, you remind yourself, this is a tough situation, but the material energy is always changing. That's the nature of material energy. The nature of the spiritual energy, which I'm made out of, is I'm eternal, I'm indestructible. Nothing can truly harm me. I just need to reconnect myself entirely with God. And so let me, in this difficult situation, let me remind myself, let me reflect on the truth that I'm God's servant. And the more that I realize that, the happier that I'll be. And this situation is simply here to remind me of that. Let me put in the effort that I need to put into. Let me be responsible. Let me not in any way lack the effort that's necessary in my duties in terms of my occupation and so on. And that's all I can do, is do my best with that. And as far as all this worrying and all these feelings of being demoralized, what is there to be demoralized about? You go out on the battlefield and you do your best, right? And then you leave the results up to God. And if you do that, if you honestly do that, there's nothing in this world for you to feel demoralized about, and it doesn't matter what anybody in this world says. And I know it can be really hard when it's your family members that are saying it, and that's commonly the circumstance in India where, you know, the parents love their children, and their concern for their children may manifest in some kind of talk that's actually quite honestly psychologically very damaging. You know, you're never going to amount to anything. You know, all that kind of stuff, it can weigh very heavily on someone. And as you mentioned, Raghunath, we do see, and particularly in India and in other, you know, Asian cultures that, you know, in one sense they have their act far more together than us, but, you know, sometimes that pushing can be too far, and it's really psychologically damaging. So protect yourself from that. Protect your mind, protect your heart from being damaged by a certain type of pressure, which may be well-intentioned, but may be sending you into these negative loops. Remind yourself of the spiritual truth that ultimately you are Krishna's dear energy, that you are indestructible, that this time and the pressure and the anxiety that you're feeling right now will pass, right? Just like all the other waves of material energy, you're going to come out the other end. Don't forget that. And then do your best. And whatever, and anything that anybody else says, and I'm not saying that you should like blow off your parents or other family members or whoever else may be increasing this kind of pressure, but internally, at the very least, internally, know your truth. Repeat that truth to you every time you find yourself in that loop, and you can find that you can break that loop. You know? And you'll come out the other side with deeper faith in Krishna, you know, a deeper connection with Krishna, because you will have walked through this with him.
Good question. We love you, Abir.
Yes, Abir,
good answer.
Too. And please, you know, if it's very troubling, you know, find that help that you need if necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could even show up to a Bhakti recovery group and share that too. I think that'd be very welcoming.
It's a good point. It's a good point. And, you know, it's actually for all the people that are in our sage groups, you know, we're just now beginning that level of the sage groups where our professional devotee Bhakti-yogi counselors are going to be trying to help people with all kind of issues. So join a sage group, and maybe we can also hook you up with that. Okay.
All right, Kaustubha, I got one for you. You ready?
You got. Mm-hmm.
This is from our very dear Sherry Yannick, librarian, formerly from Brooklyn, now from Oceanside. Okay. Oceanside, California.
Sherry Yannick living in California now.
All right. Where's Oceanside? That's San Diego-ish?
I don't know.
Okay. We got some Californians here too. I was browsing the 294 section of my new public library. That's where the books on Hinduism are shelved. Okay. 294. I guess she's into the Dewey Decimal System.
The old Dewey Decimal
system. The old Dewey Decimal System again. All the Colombians are looking at me. What is he talking about? What is this Dewey Decimal? The whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Okay. I don't really know what it means.
I'm not even going to go into it.
It's got something to do with libraries.
Yeah. When I
don't even know what alliteration is.
All right, so check it out. She noticed this book called Krishna in the Sky with Diamonds. The Bhagavad Gita as a Psychedelic Guide by Scott Teitzworth. This book seems very different from other versions of the Gita I've read. The premise is that Krishna gives Arjuna soma. So we know what soma is, like the moon beverage. Mm-hmm. And the book goes deep into how psychedelics can be spiritual teachers. I'm wondering where the author got his idea. If others embrace this, I think we all are here at Wisdom of the Sages. If others embrace this as well, I'm sure they do. And what the consensus is on this. Thanks so much for all you do. Wisdom of the Sages makes my day always. Thank you, Sherry.
So that's a great question. Interesting. I've never heard of this book before. Have you heard of it, Raghu?
No.
Okay. So, you know, the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita has a very far out description in it, in which, having heard the glories of Krishna in the previous chapter, Arjuna asked Krishna to reveal his universal form. And the universal form is like a really fascinating concept. It's kind of like Krishna displays
psychedelic, right?
Well, people
demonstration.
I mean, that's the best kind of like. I don't want to say it's the best, but it's a descriptor that we might use, you know, because it's something like we've never seen before, and it's very dramatic and it's incredibly complex. And for Arjuna, what he's looking at is kind of in some kind of unimaginable demonstration. Arjuna is witnessing that the entire universe is Krishna's energy, and that everything beautiful and everything horrifying that we see in this material world is all Krishna's energy, and he's kind of seeing it all at once. And it's shocking, and it's awe-inspiring, but it's also like terrifying at the same time. It's just an indescribably powerful vision. Now, you and I think earlier this week we were discussing the term Atmavan Manyate Jagat.
That's what you're thinking in your mind. You're thinking the whole world is thinking.
Yeah.
Like if you're a thief, you're thinking, oh, everybody's trying to steal from me.
Right. I once heard a nice class where one devotee was given a class in a Krishna temple, and he said, you know, everybody sees the world in their own way. You know, like some people come in here and they sit down in an assembly like this, and they think this place is just fantastic. It's so spiritual, and this talk is really helping me understand my life and the purpose of life. And he says, and another person is going to come down here, look around, and say, this is a great place to pick up girls. It's like we all have our own mindset, and we see the world through that. So certain people with a certain mindset will pick up the Bhagavad Gita, read the 11th chapter, and if they're into psychedelics, they may see it through those eyes and say, oh, this is, this is some psychedelic experience that was brought about by the use of psychedelics. Right.
So the question is, what are the eyes we're supposed to see it from?
Well, that's a good question. In other words, whose eyes do we see it through then? What eyes?
Why not his eyes? Why not his
Yeah.
eyes? Maybe this guy has some insight, this author.
Maybe he does, but I'm doubtful. I tend to stick with, the fact is, let's just look at it. Nowhere in this does it mention that Arjuna, down some soma beverage. Now, the soma beverage is described throughout the Puranas, Mahabharata. It's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Even people's speculation about what soma is, if you read what Prabhupada says about it, and you read about it in these texts, that in the heavenly planets, on the higher planets, people who have accrued the pious merit to ascend to those planets have also accrued the pious merit to drink this beverage. And it never describes that this beverage is like a psychedelic. It's something, it describes it actually.
I thought it was.
No,
I thought
it's
not a psychedelic, but something intoxicant.
We use the word intoxicant because we lack better language for it, but it never describes the effects of it like psychedelic. It actually describes it as like energy giving and longevity. It grants one longevity and also grants one like clarity of thought. It's blissful and enjoyable, but it's like it's giving you clarity, In any case, we don't. Clearly this person is speculating that this vision was brought about by a psychedelic, and he's attaching it to the idea of this soma beverage because it's the only drug that he knows about, apparently, that's coming from this tradition. So he's tied the two together, said this is a psychedelic experience, and he's presenting that. I went ahead and looked it up on Amazon. And he's presenting that Arjuna is experimenting with psychedelics, and Krishna is kind of like his psychedelic guide, guiding him through the use of psychedelics for higher spiritual realization. That's not at all what's happening in the Bhagavad Gita. It's not even close. What Krishna says, he literally says, and this is text 11:8, he says that you cannot see this vision with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. So really what happened there is that Krishna granted Arjuna the ability to see this vision. And it doesn't mention anything about any kind of psychedelic that he gave him in order to see it. And this is the thing, if you really want to understand Bhagavad Gita and what it's all about, you got to break out of your own materialistic little frog in the well kind of ways of seeing things. You may think that in order to have a vision like that, you need to take intoxicants. First of all, there's no psychedelic in the world that's going to give you that vision. And second of all, to have deep visions or deep realizations does not require these kind of drugs. Krishna, God, who is within the heart of every living being, can grant us all the visions that we need, can grant us all the insights that we need. And the true, deep, meaningful, valuable visions that we need to have and realizations that we need to have, he will grant us due to our sincerity to have them, right? Due to our sincerity to say, dear God, I want to understand truth. I want to see truth. I want to see beyond what my material eyes can see. I want to understand you. I want to serve you. It's that kind of sincerity that reveals what's beyond what our eyes can see. And that kind of vision and that kind of understanding is not so cheap that you can just take a little tab of chemical and drop it on your tongue and experience it. That's something that's granted by the Paramatma within the heart. That's what Bhagavad Gita teaches. right? It doesn't teach take psychedelics and have spiritual visions and understand things. It says surrender to God within your heart, control your senses, be dutiful in life, meditate on truth, reflect on it deeply so that you can see everybody in this world equally, right?
Apply it.
Practice having an even mind under all different circumstances. Have faith that happiness is something that's deep within you, and then Krishna said, and bring your mind to me, meditate on me. With that, that is the qualification to meditate on God and have visions. Not Krishna doesn't say, go to your local LSD dealer or even some natural plant or something and ingest that and have visions of me. He tells us how to live our life and how to sincerely dedicate ourselves to serving God and serving others. How to practice controlling our mind. And then he can grant you those divine eyes. He can grant you visions and truths that you otherwise wouldn't be able to access. And if you actually read the Bhagavad Gita with an open mind, you'll see that that's abundantly clear. And you will notice that conspicuous by its absence is any mention of taking psychedelics. So I will leave it there. All right.
I was prompting you to say we see it through the eyes of the previous masters. We're not.
Very good point.
I'm not. I don't want to hear. Not that I don't love you and Mara, but I don't want to hear your opinions on the Bhagavad Gita. I want to hear your thoughts after you studied how the masters taught it. That's what gives you potency. Is not just because you're giving your own ideas. You're giving the ideas of the masters, and that's what a yoga teacher is.
Right.
They're there to present yoga how it's been taught, and it's going to come out different in the Kaustubha body than the Mara body, but the truth will be the same.
That's a great point, Raghunath, because those great teachers who have those important, recognized, you could say authorized, right? Great teachers who come down in this tradition, they had a lot broader understanding of this tradition than any guy that just, is into psychedelics and picks up a Bhagavad Gita and may even be a professor at some university, right? They've read all the Upanishads, they've read all the Puranas, they've read the entire Mahabharata and the Vedas, and they understand the whole thing in context. They understand what Soma is, right? And they understand what's happening in the Bhagavad Gita. So with a far broader understanding, they're all telling us how to understand these verses and what's going on. And they don't make any mention that Krishna is some kind of psychedelic guru. So that's a really good point too. Thank you for that.
All right, let's carry it.
Should we wrap it up here, or should we try to squeeze one more in? You tell me, Rogo. We got 4 minutes.
We can squeeze. I got a short answer for the next one.
Okay, this is another one coming from the Netherlands, Raghunath. I think
Netherlands is a hot spot.
Okay,
Spiritual life.
This is from Dennis van Limburg.
You ever been to Netherlands?
No, I haven't.
That's nice.
I may have passed through the airport, but never spent any
Used to
time.
play some good shows in Amsterdam.
I bet you did. Okay, this is coming from Dennis van Limburg, a regular other from the Netherlands via email. He writes, Dear Kaustubha, Raghunath, and Mara, I want to thank you for building and maintaining the Wisdom of the Sages podcast and community and congratulate you for your 2-year milestone. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Wisdom of the Sages has completely changed my worldview, and I like it. In episode 619, you read Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33-14. In the purport of that verse, Prabhupada writes, quote, one should be very careful not to eat too much, sleep too much, or remain in a comfortable position. Voluntarily accepting, don't remain
finally comfortable. Well, don't stay there.
Don't stay there. Voluntarily accepting some penances and difficulties, one should take less food and less sleep. These are the procedures for practicing any kind of yoga, unquote. Sleep has gotten a lot of attention recently. There's a lot of promotion for sleep for its benefits for mental and physical health. The focus is mainly on quality of sleep, but a 7 to 9 hour shut-eye is broadly recommended. Based on what I heard from Prabhupada's nightly rest, I would assume 7 hours of sleep would be considered a lot of sleep. Personally, I find it more challenging to remain focused during japa meditation and to withstand temptations of, for example, unhealthy food when I sleep less. I assume others might relate to these challenges. Can you please discuss how to interpret the instruction to sleep less in relation to the recommendations for sleep and the challenges when sleeping less? Please forgive me if my assumptions or interpretations are incorrect. Thank you again for all that you do And I hope to continue on this path with you.
Nice guy, Dennis.
Yeah.
Dennis. Here's a simple answer. Do what you need. Do what you need to do.
Forget about what Prabhupada said.
No, do what you need to do to have a good spiritual life. You know, you got to know your demons too. If your demon is food, you eat too much. So you got to learn how to regulate your food. If your demon is sleep, you sleep too much. You got to learn how to regulate your sleep. We tend to like get on these tangents. So we need 7 to 9 hours. I don't need 7 to 9 hours personally. I can go to bed. I can do anything. I can be whatever I'm doing right before I go to bed. As soon as I say I'm going to bed now, I'm out in less than 30 seconds. And then I wake up exactly 6 hours later. It's been like that my entire life. I don't like sleep. I'm not one of these guys promoting sleep. I hate it. I think it steals a lot of time, but I've just sort of like, I don't know if I disciplined it or if it was just my body, but from my teenage life, I always tried to I figure, well, if I sleep 6 hours, that's a quarter of my life just gone to sleep. I always thought, how can I reduce this? And so I used to experiment with sleep to try to reduce it. But now I just go on what I do normally. And I don't have an issue with that. I got lots of other issues, but so if your issue is sleep, then you want to regulate it and you want to get quality sleep. I get that. And some people have sleep apnea or they have breathing issues. You might have to deal with that to get better sleep. But it's just like, we're just not indulgent in these things. Why? Because it's a rule for our benefit. It's the same old thing. These rules are there for our benefit. It's not just to give us a bunch of rules. Do what you need to do to move forward in your spiritual life, because that's the goal. That's the main thing. And the main thing is to keep the main thing.
Yeah.
The main thing.
You know how Dennis kept the main thing in this question, in my opinion, is he mentioned that like when I'm not getting enough sleep, I think he mentioned that like his meditation is harder to meditate and so on, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, is like all these rules are helping us meditate correctly, helping us bring our mind to the right place. So if trying to reduce your sleep is making that more difficult, then the rule isn't working for you, right? But
Right.
I would say this also is that if you want to reduce your sleep, which is a helpful thing in spiritual life, you can't necessarily just do it by like setting your alarm and getting up no matter how tired you feel. But sleep, is related to tamaguna, and wakefulness is related to sattvaguna. And if you begin to adopt more sattvic habits in your life, particularly in terms of food, and also in terms of when you go to sleep, if you sleep early, then you may find that, like if you go to sleep at midnight every night, you may find I need 7 hours of sleep, because it's, Ayurvedic, teachings say that, the hours of, before midnight, you get very deep rest. And if you go to sleep after midnight, you're not getting as much from the hours that you're sleeping. So like if you go to sleep, and I know to a lot of people this sounds crazy, but like, I go to sleep 8:30, 9 o'clock maybe.
That's upstate sleeping time. We all go to bed at 8:30 upstate.
Yeah.
It's in the city. It sounds crazy. Right, Mara? When do you go to bed, Mara?
Yeah, I go to bed 9:30.
Elizabeth, she's down at 8
Yeah,
7:30.
It's parent life. It's
6 when you
upstate
go to
life.
sleep.
It's over 50 life. Once you're in New York City and everything's pumping and pumping at 10 o'clock, it's like, what are these people doing?
Yeah. So the point is you want to be alert throughout the day. You want to have a clear mind when you sit down to chant, you do your meditation and so on. And less sleep, if you're not getting enough sleep and you can't do that, then it's not helping you. But there may be ways that you will naturally need to sleep less. And that has to do with the food that you eat, keeping sattvic habits, going to sleep early. Those might actually help.
Good answer. It was good.
I think your answer was good, Raghu. Thank
I
you.
think that's good, my friend.
There we go.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you like what we're doing, hey, this is a community-supported podcast. Go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. That's how you can keep this thing going. I want to thank everybody who joined us late. I didn't say hi to, like Renee Jacobs and Todd Harris. We're taking care of your wife down here. We're keeping her, actually. We decided to keep her. We like her.
She's not coming home.
And Mallory's here, and Chris Pitt is here. We're taking care of your wife, too. And let's see. Anybody? Victoria, Jamie Love. Anyway, I want to also thank these lovely people.
You got to slow it down, Raghu. They're blurring out on us. Yeah.
Blurring out here. Okay. How's that?